Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. In late June, Beijing announced they're going to hold a ceremony, a very big ceremony, commemorating the victory over the Japanese invasion about 80 years ago. They have a very long name for this ceremony. Let me read it out. They call it the 80th Anniversary Ceremony of the Victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance Against Japanese Aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. So that's a long name. In addition to this ceremony, they say they're going to hold a military parade. They're going to invite various people from various parties and countries and so on and so forth to participate in this ceremony. They're going to invite the old soldiers, the old comrades who participated in the event, and the leaders of related countries, high officials, and of related international organizations. And most importantly, they're going to invite the old soldiers who fought the war under the leadership of the Nationalist Party, namely the KMT party. Beijing's purpose for doing this is multiple, of course. First is to usurp the ROC, the Republic of China's role of being the main force of fighting this war against Japanese invasion. Secondly is to arrogate the so-called discourse power of telling the story of fighting the Japanese. And most importantly, they want to cover up their ugly history, of their dirty history of not fighting the Japanese during those 8 years. I know that many of you may not be so familiar with this part of the history, so let me point to a few facts to illustrate my point. First, according to the military history, on both the Chinese side, I mean the ROC side and the Japanese side of the history, during the period of 8 years, from 1937 through 1945, there are altogether 22 campaigns or major operations. I'll talk about the definitions later. In addition to that, there are altogether 1,117 major battles or major actions. And in addition, there are more than 38,000 so-called engagements. So altogether, we're talking about 40,000 engagements between the Japanese and the Chinese military forces. So by major campaign or by major operation, we mean that each side, the Japanese side and Chinese side, the ROC side, put in more than or around 100,000 people on each side. And that we call it a major operation or major campaign. All of these 22 major operations, the Chinese communists showed up only once, and they sent in more than 1,000 people out of 100,000 people. So that's only a small fraction of it. There's no way that they can call a major force in the battle or in the operation. And out of the 1,000 odd campaigns, the Chinese communists participated about a dozen or so. And they showed up for about 100 to 200 times out of the more than 38,000 engagements. So altogether, they showed up for about a couple of hundred times. And again, there's no way that the Chinese Communist Party can be called a major force in the war against Japanese invasion. So that's the first fact. Secondly, if we review the military history on the Japanese side, there's a very, very little sign of the appearance of the Chinese Communist Party. Namely, the communist troops did not show up very often. And thirdly, if we compare the military history on both the Chinese and Japanese side, that we can tell that the Japanese had lost about 80-some generals during the 8-year war. And for the Chinese side, for the ROC side, they've lost more than 200 generals, from 1-star general to 3-star generals, more than 200. The least number I've seen is 204. And the largest number I've seen is a little bit less than 270. And all these Chinese generals are venerated in the National Revolutionary Martyr Shrine located in Taipei. And the fourth fact I want to bring your attention to is to whom did the Japanese surrender or render their capitulation? Actually, there were two capitulation ceremonies. One was held on USS Battleship Missouri on September the 2nd, 1945. The Japanese sent two representatives. One is Shigemitsu Mamoru, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The second representative was Umezu Yoshijiro, who was the Chief of Army General Staff. And on the Allied side, of course, the first gentleman we see was General MacArthur. And there was another American representative, General Nimitz. And on the Chinese side, we have General Xu Yongcang, Minister of National Defense. That was his first capitulation ceremony. The second surrender ceremony was held in Nanjing, the capital city of the Republic of China. And it was held on 9 o'clock sharp in the morning, and on September the 9th. The representative from the China side was General He Yingqin, the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, on behalf of Chairman Chiang Kai-shek, who was the chairman of the Military Affairs Commission at the time. As for the Japanese, their representative was Yasuji Okamura, who was the Commander-in-Chief of the Japan Expeditionary Force to China. So that means this Japanese general capitulated to ROC, to the Republic of China, and to Chairman Chiang Kai-shek, not to the Chinese Communist Party, and not to Mao Zedong. Then you may have a question by now. If the Chinese communists did not fight the Japanese during those 8 years, what were they doing? Well, a Professor Guo Hualun from National Chengchi University, who used to be a Chinese Communist Party member and who defected and then became a KMT member, who taught in National Chengchi University for many years. And he, being an expert on the Chinese Communist Party, he wrote a book, a huge book, a 4-volume book entitled On History of the Chinese Communist Party. On page 9 of the 4th volume, he said this: Mao Zedong said that the war between China and Japan is an excellent opportunity for our party to develop. By our party, he means that the Chinese Communist Party. And Mao Zedong continues, our decision is that we are going to devote 10% of our efforts to fight the Japanese, 20% to model through, and the rest is 70% to develop ourselves. So what does he mean by developing themselves? First is to expand their army. They had only 30,000 people when they fled to Yan'an after the so-called Long March, being defeated by the nationalist government. And then after 8 years of war resistance against Japanese invasion, the main force of the Communist Party rose from 30,000 to 1.2 to 1.3 million, about 40 times strong. And that's their main force. And they have a militia, about from 2.2 to 2.6 million people, almost equivalent to that of the nationalist army. And that's the army. And secondly, they established the so-called border governments. By border governments, we mean that they occupied the border regions. Basically, they were the mountain ranges crossing the borders. They established altogether 19 of them. And by these 19 border governments, they could actually rule 100 million people, Chinese people. From these 100 million Chinese people, they can draft their army, they can draft their labor, they could collect tax, and they could collect food to support their war. And these constitute the assets they could use to initiate the civil war against the nationalist government at the time. They ambushed the nationalist armies from time to time. According to one leaked information, the Communist Army ambushed the National Army 3,800 times, killing and wounding more than 150,000 people. Well, you think that's all of it? No, that's far from it. They have a moral standard far below than that of ours. According to one book authored by Professor Homare Ando, who was a lady Japanese professor, the name of the book is The Truth About Mao Zedong Colluding with the Japanese Military, and the subtitle is Memoir and Files from a Japanese Spy, a very famous Japanese spy by the name of Iwai Eiichi. And these are but a tip of the iceberg of what happened in those 8 years of war against Japanese invasion. What the Chinese government did constitute what we call the act of high treason, can be had in almost all the countries. So let's go back to the news. When the Chinese Communist Party claimed that they are the main force of fighting the war or leading the war against Japanese invasion, it's a sheer lie. And the reason that they want to hold this ceremony is just to cover up their ugly history or their dirty history. An 8-year war is a long one. There are so many details and so many stories to tell. But because of time, that's all I can share with you today. I hope you liked today's program. If you haven't subscribed to it, please do so and share it with your friends and click the icon bell so that you can get the on-time notification. And that's all I want to share with you today. I hope you like it. I'll see you next time then.